And we're live.
Welcome to the Scalawags, episode 18.
On this episode, we will learn to count into 20.
I don't know, man. I didn't learn how to count in my math major.
1. 2.
How long does this part go on?
Way too long.
Yeah, as long as it takes Dick to count up to 18.
What do you mean?
It goes on. You know that point at which the moment becomes awkward. It goes on a little longer than that.
And then keeps
Our
going.
whole podcast.
What do you mean? Is it awkward?
No, not yet, but it will be.
Okay.
Oh yes, it will be.
So this is Scalawags number 18.
18. I can't believe it. We're at 18. That means
Yeah.
we've been doing this like almost 2 years or something.
We can stay out past midnight now.
Yes, but we still can't drink.
Yeah, that's why I'm hidden behind this photo.
Yeah.
That and
we still
because
can't drink.
Daniel apparently thinks that we need more sex appeal, so I'm just gonna leave this picture of a pirate in favor of my face.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, Josh, it's quite an improvement.
Nothing says sex appeal like a missing eye and a missing tooth.
And the tongue sort of hanging out. Yeah, that's really fantastic.
It's kind of like the Rolling Stones tongue, sort of.
40 licks.
You know, there was a whole rock star motif in the programming world, and that's what this pirate's all about. He's about to lick the guitar to play it.
This is the Scala Rockstar. Is that his name?
I don't know, man. Yeah, sure. The pirate rock star. Yeah.
So since last time, we went to Scaladays, most of us. And actually all of us, since Daniel was present virtually.
Yes, virtually as in almost present.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I think the video. I think the video of that is up now, with all of its glorious delay.
We actually all thought that Daniel had pre-recorded his bits and was like being played back, and it turns out that he was really live on there. So that was pretty good.
That was actually me. John and Miles convinced me to wake up at like 4 in the morning to do that for you guys. I hope you appreciate it.
So for those of you who are unaware, the Scalawags videos are live. We'll put links to them in the show notes. And there was a session called 10 Years of Scala, where Miles, Sabin, and John Pretty.
Funny.
What? It was one of the best sessions that I saw. It was hilarious. It was great. So.
Yeah, everyone should really watch that video, which needs to be remastered because the audio is out of sync. But it's really, really good. It's really hilarious. I wish I was there.
It was very funny.
There.
Everybody wishes they were there.
I was one of the people who had a talk right afterwards and had to sneak out so that I could get set up. But I don't think I missed anything except the closing credits, which was good. So that was really fun.
I really liked the bit about the he knew it was Martin's keyboard because it was Swiss and because it had 3 underscores on it.
Yeah. So for those of you who aren't familiar, someone was asking why Scala had so many underscores or something. No. It was the plus key. So they were asking why does Scala prefer like plus after for appending strings instead of doing string interpolation. So this was before string interpolation existed, and someone tried to suggest that Swiss keyboards had the plus key next to the quote key, and that's why it was the case. So then there were all sorts of jokes about the Swiss keyboard having like 5 underscores and all quotes right beside plus.
Yeah. That was a pretty subtle joke. I'm not sure how many people got that joke.
I got it.
Yeah, I actually didn't get that one. Yeah. So the really hilarious thing about this is Martin has stated on numerous occasions that he programs with an English keyboard layout.
Yeah.
He doesn't
Yeah.
actually program with a Swiss keyboard layout because it's insane.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think that's proof that the English keyboard layout is better.
Well, it's at least it at least allows you to build a language that has like lexicographical properties which mirror every other language that has ever been created.
Well, it lets you build a language that's really easy for people with English keyboards to type on.
Yeah.
I
Right.
think that's what it lets you do.
Yeah, which is really, really important given the universality of that.
Yeah, and I think this is an important point for everyone to remember, is if you're designing something for a user, using what they use is a good thing to do. So this also means that Martin doesn't care about Swiss programmers, apparently.
Well,
I recently met for the first time an actual APL programmer, someone who had she like used to do actual work in APL on the APL keyboard.
Wow,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're still in the intro. We haven't really said who we are, what we do, anything like that. Should we do that, or should we go into Scaladays?
Anyone cares? Really?
I think we want to talk about Scala.
Do you know who I am?
If they don't know by now, they really probably don't give a rat's ass. So.
That's true.
That's true. In jokes for the conversation before we started recording.
Nice. All right. So what? Let's go through just some anecdotes from Scaladays. Your favorite talk, and it can't be the first 10 years in Scala.
Okay. Other than the first 10 years in Scala, I think I've got to throw out Shadij Ladad, the 14-year-old kid who, controls games with his brain, and just all of the different stuff that he's been experimenting with Scala. That one, I've seen him do variations of that talk before. It's always fun to watch that. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be mine. A strong second to Heather Miller's talk, which I found very focused, and she actually does really nice slides. Like somebody who goes to a conference that has some design skills and knows how to make slides, which is not me.
Well, so she did the Akka website and the Scala website.
Ah, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But spores themselves are actually going to be very useful. I am itching to get my hands on those, so that was a really good talk as well.
Yeah.
Anyone else?
I'm having trouble picking just one.
That's true.
A lot of the talks were like updates on projects. So I'm tempted to just name projects that I'm excited about, and then getting updates. Like there was a great update on Scala.js. Hearing more about macros and about this Scala.meta from Eugene. That's what the project Palladium, the new name for that, the macro reboot. It was really cool hearing about Vlad's mini-boxing plugin, which is a perspective replacement for specialization in Scala. I guess I want to throw in a special shout out, like for the best, not a news talk, but a really solid intro to a difficult topic was Dave Gurnell's talk called Macros for the Rest of Us. It was a really clear, really well presented. Here's what macros are. Here's how to do them. Starting from scratch. It was really well done.
Awesome.
I have one that I can add to my list, which is the one that I regret missing the most. I was busy doing something else at the time, but I didn't get to see Jason Zaug's talk on asyncs and asyncs versus futures, and I will have to go back and check that one out on the video.
Yeah. One of my favorites was a keynote, actually, which was Chad Fowler's.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm kind of into meta talks like that, where Yeah, it was mostly about like thinking about how to design legacy systems where legacy isn't a bad thing, that live on for a really long time. I thought it was interesting.
I enjoyed that too. I just changed jobs, and so I'm right now in the position of seeing this code base that I worked on for 13 years now being taken over by other people, and so to them this is now legacy code.
Legacy code, yeah.
So, and I'm seeing them, like certain things that I wanted or hopes that I had for it are going forward, and then others I can just see them being like, all right, Seth's gone, now we can do what we want.
That one reminded me that I've had many conversations along these lines, and one of the things I always think about when I write code is kind of the shelf life. And the moment I write code, it starts to age, it starts to get smelly, and you can kind of have a guess at the shelf life of code. Something that's hacked together quickly, I want that out of there in 6 months at the outside. I want it deleted and gone. If I write something that I'm really pleased with, I'll be happy if that gets 3 years before it's replaced by something else. Anything that lasts more than 3 years, that's pretty much a legacy, and I'm very pleased that it made it that long, because code changes pretty quickly, and goalposts change pretty quickly. So that was what that put me in mind of when Chad was talking about that, was, shelf life of code, about 3 years, I reckon.
So it reminded me, there was a Strange Loop talk back when Daniel and I were in Strange Loop like 3 years ago, about AI and artificial programming and tying it back to biology. And I've heard this a bunch of times where, like, if you think about a biological system, right, cells are like coming to life and dying all the time. All the time. And it doesn't kill the whole organism. But they need to be, like isolated and that sort of thing. And I feel like if you look at where programming is moving, we're moving towards very small, isolated components that can die and be reborn. There's like a microservices push now, that sort of thing. I feel like we're moving towards this model. So it was just really interesting. The talk itself was interesting, but I feel like the corpus of movement is going that direction. And I forget the guy's name. I remember Daniel was arguing with him about Lisp and what happened in early Lisp history.
I vaguely remember this talk, but I don't remember the guy's name, and I don't remember exactly what his point was that I disagreed with. Oh no, I do. Yes, I do.
I always remember why I disagree with people.
Yeah, no, I do remember. I remember this one specifically because I was wrong. Darn it. Structured computer programming guy.
Yeah, he's really famous, and I should know his name, but perhaps it's too late in the day. I don't know.
Maybe.
He was like one of the founders of Lisp at MIT.
He's still at MIT.
Anyone know? He's still there, yeah, but he was like... oh, man, what's his name? It's going to kill me. Sussman, yes.
Yeah.
Sussman had a talk, basically very similar, but way more in depth and also very interesting. That was, I think, I don't know. I like that guy blows me away. Like the way he's foreshadowed computer science and been way ahead of the game. So that's why Chad Fowler's talk I thought was really well delivered, and I think had a lot of interesting points. But from a meta space, like I feel like the industry is moving that direction. So it's pretty cool. And do I have to pick a second favorite talk?
I did. So now I've set the precedent, so I think you have
to. Oh, man. Yeah. So I don't know if you guys went to see Nada's talk about the new type system, Dottie.
Oh, I did. Yeah, I did.
Yes. So what I thought was fun about that talk is she mentioned all the problems that they had to solve for Dottie, but she never told anyone that they were solved. So you were left with this impression that like
it's all hopeless.
Yeah, but I mean it's a really hard problem, but they have some interesting proofs to solve it. Yeah, very 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 cool logic they're using to get these things to work. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool.
I'm really interested to see what comes out of the whole Dottie thing. Like I think I think there's a number of different ways that it could go, and at the very least, it's really interesting PL theory.
Yeah.
As far as the impact it's going to have on the future of Scala, I think, we're a couple of years off from being able to see exactly what that's going to be. But I don't know. I think the people who are working on it are really, really smart. So.
I mean, look at how long it took Scala 2 to stabilize from when they first designed it from scratch to the point where it's being adopted by industry. I think that's how long you'd want Dottie to cook in the oven. But maybe not as long because we've learned lessons, but still.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, like a lot of the late game stabilization in the Scala 2 stream was just because of things that were being learned not just about the industry, but about the language itself, and like tricks about how you would use this and how you would want to use this and where your trade-offs were that really are not apparent when you're designing it. Like think about, so I put the end of the 2.0 evolution as 2.9. Like that's what I would put the capstone on there. You could argue for 2.8, but I think 2.8 was so unstable. What was that?
Since then it's been stabilization, you mean? Or
I think that, I mean, it's kind of a continuum, right? But I think of especially coming into 2.7 to 2.8 and then the 2.8 changes, like that I would see as like where the rapid evolution stopped and some much more measured changes happened. Yeah. And part of that is the advent of TypeSafe, but part of it I think was just like we were no longer asking the same questions about how to design libraries in Scala, about how to design Scala itself. Like back in the 2.6 days, there were language changes in point releases. Like remember that? I mean,
well, the other thing,
and they were language changes because and some of them were like backtracking on things that had been done earlier.
The other thing you got to remember about that time was 2.7, 2.8 was where Scala really got noticed and started to get traction in real companies and real usage, and at that point one of the earliest complaints. There were many complaints going around, but one of the earliest complaints was, I can't rely on this not to break between, even tiny releases. All my stuff needs to be recompiled and probably won't work. And so they really heard that, and it was like, okay, we gotta smooth things out a little bit for otherwise we're gonna scare off the normals.
Right. I think that's not a coincidence, right? I mean. Yeah. I think it's very rare that something is noticed and begins to see wide-scale adoption early in its evolutionary curve. When you have something that's rapidly ramping through and it is changing that rapidly, like there's a sense, even to someone on the outside, that it's really not mature yet. And the industry got to it right at the tail end of that curve, and so people were there to complain about the rapid changes that were still happening in 2.7, but that was right at the tail end of things. And the sort of adoption hockey stick, which happened right there, and the leveling out of the evolution were not coincidentally concurrent, I think.
No, I think that was smart.
If you're on a project where that happens, you can really tick off users pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Well, it was really touch and go for Scala, I think, because there were a lot of users. Yeah, like you think about early on, where in this context we can define early on as like 2.75 and beyond, right?
Okay. I mean, I would go at 2.7 as when people really started to dive in hardcore, because 2.6 is when the library started to kick in.
Yeah, that's when we started to see specs. That's when we started to see lift.
Yeah. Well, that's when we started to see stable libraries kick in. Stable enough that you could use them.
Stable enough that you could use them. I mean, we look back at it now, and we look at the level of stability that we had then. I actually get nightmares thinking about upgrading between 2.7.1 and 2.7.2. And trying to deal with like really subtle bugs that were introduced.
My nightmares usually involve like a lift dangling from a wire and the door open and me hanging out of it with one hand. Just saying.
I dream about compiler bugs and subtle version incompatibilities between specs and lift and Scala check.
Daniel, if like the dream sender like accidentally sent your dream to like someone in the next house, that they'd be very confused.
Yeah.
I mean, like, why is this scary?
The dreammaster would be like, this person isn't scared. They're just.
What happened to the giant lobsters chasing me?
Now, here's a question. If the dreammaster is actually a giant like distributed computing engine that sends you dreams to compute values, what does that say about Daniel versus Bill, man? What are we trying to
sort of continuous integration, sir.
Because I don't even get dreams. That's what I'm saying, or that I can remember.
Oh man, limited processing power. I don't know. You're like that node that's just like so old it's not worth sending jobs to.
Exactly. Like he just thinks of stupid stuff all the time. We're not even gonna bother with him anymore.
So you're the Homer Simpson of programming.
Exactly. Oh,
so
man.
we're thinking back to angsty days of Scala 2.7, 2.8 upgrades. Like I thought Scaladays this year was remarkably low angst.
Yes,
especially compared to last year, where I think Rod's talk sort of set a tone of tension that just wasn't there this time, or at least I didn't feel it.
I don't know. Certainly, Rod's talk was loaded with some tension. I don't know that it coloured the rest of Scaladays for me, but I do think that this one felt like a more kind of mature, reasoned, measured kind of Scaladays, which is not to say bad. I think it's reached a milestone of some stability at this point in the language and the community.
Yeah.
And I thought it was good. I did hear, I should say at this point, I heard a couple of people say they thought Martin's keynote was possibly a little bit conservative. I thought it was a good keynote, but not, it was a language-focused keynote. But they thought that, 10 Years of Scala should have been a bit more rah-rah-rah Scala. And so that was, I thought, interesting. I'd never thought about it until they said that. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I can see the point there.
So, if you know Martin, can you imagine him like jumping on a tabletop, screaming Scala? Like,
he should run about with sweaty armpits and say, "I love this language." Scala,
and
Scala,
give
Scala,
it,
Scala.
you know who I am.
Developers.
Is this like the Balmer video?
Yeah.
Are we picturing that?
Yeah.
The Balmersky.
Can you imagine Musk's
Balmersky.
reaction if someone took that and like photoshopped his head in on top of Balmer's body?
Oh,
that would be awful.
Just an
awful.
An expressionless Martin head just attached to this wildly gesticulating body.
I
nobody
like this keynote a lot, and so I'm not mirroring those, but I did hear people say that, and I thought that bore mentioning that there were people who thought that it should have been more celebrated.
I think so. So Martin's keynote was around the whole he gave it in Chicago when I saw it, and it was it was a lot more in depth to the Scala community because it can be, but it was mostly about like what's the simple parts of Scala and like the design trade-offs he made, and I think it's in response to the whole Scala's complex thing.
Yeah.
Because Scala gets pulled in two directions, right? It gets pulled to be more like Java, and it gets pulled to be more like Haskell, or like ML. So since it gets pulled in like two different ways, it's kind of like I feel like sometimes he wants to like defend. No, this is where we are, and that sort of thing, and then ends up pissing off everyone.
If you look back at the Java, I mean this is history repeating itself. In the Java world, when Java came out, everybody was certain Java was slow. And that image never really left it. Not for the longest time, anyway. For 10 years, people were saying Java's slow.
Not till Ruby came along.
Yeah, and showed what slow really was. Sorry, Rubyists. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, Scala now has this mythos of being complex. And the moment anything happens, everybody goes, see what I say? And so, there is that
So we
there's the
need
risk of
someone
that.
we need someone to invent a vastly more impenetrable and complex language that will like steal the complexity crown from Scala.
You thought
The,
Scala was
Maybe we
complex.
can
Try
do
this.
that. We can do it as a troll on the whole software ecosystem, and then it'll get adopted more widely than Scala, and we'll cry.
Surely brain F star star K fills that role nicely.
Actually,
well,
that one's
that's
quite
actually
simple.
not a very.
We-
yeah,
we-
that's not a
we
very
need
complex
something that
language.
can
It has,
sort
like,
of
core
Okay,
concepts.
I should say that's not complex. It's just unreadable.
Well, no. Have you seen the Whitespace programming language?
Is
Because
this-
it's
is this
exactly
James-
what it sounds like. Yeah.
It's
So
like
basically,
Whitespace.
it's machine readable Whitespace, and you can put any text you want in, and they recommend throwing poetry as the text that separates your Whitespace for
Yeah.
and perform ASCII art, contortions. It's a beautiful language.
Basically, the
Johnson guy.
idea is basically the idea is you have like, and there's variations of this, right? So space is S, tab is K, and carriage return is I, and so you have a Turing complete calculus then.
Oh, no, this was SK and I. Is that the same as brain F star star K? Because the one I saw was just
No,
brain F.
Brain, but no, brain F star star K is not the same as the ski calculus, but you would not be able to make a Turing complete system with just 3 symbols in the paradigm of brain F star star K.
Oh, so no, this Whitespace one actually worked with the same way as brain F star star K, and you used characters as delimiters between the operators. So like double space was different than single space.
Oh, okay. So you have more than 3 then.
Yeah, but if you had one that was SKI, that would be awesome as well. Anyway,
there's somebody else who really likes writing poetry in programming languages, and that brings us back to Rob Johnson's keynote from a year and a half ago.
Yeah, so that one, I feel, so Rod Johnson, from what I understand, because I never actually watched any of his keynotes until that Scaladays. From what I understand, he likes to be controversial. He likes to make a discussion like that. The sad part was I don't think that conversation needed to happen. I think it had already happened in the community.
It just stirred things up, yeah.
Yeah, it basically made all the old hat Scala people who had heard it and felt they already listened really angry. And then all the new people were like, yeah, I agree with that.
Actually, I wonder if all the new people were like, what the hell have I just got into here? I think that was more of a concern. Yeah.
It ripped open a lot of old wounds that we had already moved past and found solutions to. And some of that was still residual, obviously. Like there was still some of that floating around, but the community had reached the point of recognition and moving forward, right? And then kind of bringing it out and throwing it in our face was like reminding us of some terrible night on the town that we had a few months back. That we wanted to forget about.
So this time in Berlin we got to like have a laugh about it with Miles and John.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen that part of the talk yet.
Well, I'm just talking about them, including controversial figures and ex-members of the community, not in a tense way, but like hey, we can laugh about this now.
In a more and I've got to say, some of Paul Phillips' quotes were just they were so choice. There were tears running down my face.
Yeah. There was one where someone asked for help, and he equated it to asking to go on a date with what was it, ketchup on your shirt and squirrels running out of your pants. It was
It was so good. Those were the best quotes. Oh.
Anyway, yeah. So we had some good times in the early community, but I think what I actually kind of like where the Scala community is right now in terms of welcoming others, in terms of teaching people, in terms of the depth. There is a lot of advanced stuff going on in terms of research and what people are learning. There's a lot of depth you can gain out of it, but the community itself is just pretty nice, pretty awesome.
Yeah, I agree. And I think tools like Activator have really helped as well. You can't underestimate the out-of-the-box experience for people. I know, one of the things I'm looking at, I got a lot of things on my want-to-learn list, And when I'm going through it, if something takes too long to get going, I'm like, I got better things to do with my time. I'm moving on. And it's really helpful to just get something up and running. Play and Activator, things like that. They actually let you get something running, and once you're hooked, then it can get more, then it can get more involved. You're like hooked by that stage.
Do I understand correctly that the Play 2.3 is like Activator based now?
Oh, now that's a good question, because I've had this question from a couple of my co-workers as well.
All right, you ready for the details?
Yeah.
The Play start script has always been, since Play 2, has always been the SBT launcher. There was never a difference between SBT and Play. Besides, Play included a repository by default, and they called their script PLAY instead of SBT.
Right.
But it was the same launcher that they were using to start up Play. They also had a hook to create a template project. So then Activator was created to make this template project thing more robust across all of the projects. Anyone can include it. Initially, we actually used Giterate, but we ran into a few issues with Giterate. So anyway, Activator was made to not just be like a template project, but also tutorials attached to them to get started, and you could do one or the other. And then it throws a UI, but Activator is just the SBT launcher that can either launch SBT or a UI. So now you have the Play script, which is just the SBT launcher with a default repository, Activator, which is launching SBT or a UI or a repository, and then you have SBT, which launches SBT. So we unified all of them. So far, Play is the first one to get hit of the start script is Activator. So you get the Activator UI, you get the default repository, and you get all the stuff you had from Play before. And it's the same start mechanism, it's the same build, it's everything. It's just the SBT launcher. I don't know if you guys know this, but the SBT launcher can actually launch anything that is published to Maven or Ivy. We actually had people using it as their deployment mechanism in their cluster, where they would just use the SBT launcher to launch their apps. That kind of scares me a little bit, because but we added automatic upgrade hooks and Activator and stuff, so it's a pretty robust little tiny 1 megabyte jar that launches other things, right? But that's what everything was based on. So yes, Play's start script is now Activator, but it's not really like a big change. Like, everyone was freaking out because you type Activator instead of Play, but it's the same launcher, it's the same kind of hooks.
Well, yeah, but it's like twice the number of characters to type. That's the problem, right?
We thought about calling it Act, but that would really tick people off.
It's going the wrong way. Okay, it went from 3 to 4 and then to 8. Is it 8 or 7?
I actually still type SBT to run all of the above, but it's fine.
Yeah, it's just going the wrong way.
Well, so we also found out. Did I tell you what SBT? When you translate it into Chinese characters, if you are creative in the characters you pick to spell SBT, it actually means death pervert.
Wow, that's got some potentially negative connotations to it.
Yeah, but if you actually just pronounce it in Japanese, it's sweet and sour pork.
Oh, okay.
So
I like sweet and sour pork.
We got upsides and downsides. I don't know.
Well,
yeah. Anyway,
so speaking of making technologies more accessible, I think, at least from my perspective, I mean, I don't care much about Activator one way or another, because if I were coming to Scala afresh, I wouldn't be coming through Activator. What I would be coming through is SBT, and I think the direction that SBT has been heading and the changes that have been made in the most recent releases and some of the streamlining that's happened have lowered the barrier of entry to Scala for anyone who bypasses Activator by such an enormous order of magnitude. I mean, I think that has made a huge, huge difference for the people who don't want to do Activator but still, want to be able to get started with Scala and do something non-trivial quickly. So my hat is very much off to SBT.
I'm going to throw out some kudos to Activator, though, as well, because I work with a lot of people who are not, primarily programmers. These guys are bioinformaticians and stuff like that, and they really do reach for Activator first, particularly for things like the Scala reactive stuff. They reach for that and the Activator template to kind of give them that experience of, okay, let's lead you through the learning of this library. It makes it very easy to just pick something up, read about it in the sidebar, look at the code, have them linked up, all that sort of thing, and that works really well for them. So it's good. It's good for that sort of use case.
Yeah.
It's not intended for us. It's intended for people who are less familiar with Scala coming into it in the first place, and I think it's really good for that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have well, anyway, I lead the team which owns SBT, so I'm biased, of course. But we, I was part of the prototyping of Activator and the initial design of it, and I've worked heavily with the Play team on their plugins. So like those three aspects actually really work closely together within TypeSafe. It's hard for me to distinguish them as projects in my head because of how closely we actually work. Even though they have different names. So I don't know what it's like externally. So it's kind of interesting hearing this feedback.
Yeah, I don't reach for Activator for anything other than tutorials personally. Everything else to me is SBT. But
pretty soon you should reach for it just because it looks amazing.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
Maxine is awesome, and maybe we'll add some Easter eggs just for you.
Oh.
If is Dick Wall, do something ridiculous.
If is Dick Wall set user display name equals Bill.
Well, that's okay because I'm Bill Venners, so it won't matter to me. Right.
Cool. Yeah. So the tone at Scaladays was quite awesome. Is there anything else we want to say about Scaladays? Highlights, downsides?
I really enjoyed it. I can't wait for the next one. I believe the next one is going to be stateside, but I don't know much more about it.
Actually,
do we have any details about it?
I don't know what I'm allowed to say, but the next it might fragment.
Don't get into trouble, man.
Well, so I don't think I'll get in trouble with this. Basically, the Scaladays this year, surprisingly, was 80% of the people that attended were European or more.
Right.
And a huge percentage of that was specifically people who live in Germany.
Yeah.
And the Scaladays last year in New York, it was like over 80% was American.
Yeah.
So I think that it might bifurcate, and there might be a Scaladays Europe and a Scaladays. It might not even be stateside. It might even be on Canadian soil.
Oh.
Who knows? There's more than one country in this continent.
They're part of this country.
There are 3 countries in this continent. There is South Texas. There's the U.S.
And then there's Fargo.
There's the northern U.S.
There's
Fargo.
I would call it Minnesota, actually.
Minnesota.
Anything
Minnesota.
like the U.S. border and above is Minnesota. That's where it all. I don't know.
Things I learned about Canada is never go there and tell them that you're actually there on business. Tell them that you're there for a business meeting at the most. If you tell them that you're actually there to do, for example, training, you'll spend 3 hours in an interrogation room talking about why you have to do the training versus Canadian doing it. That
is so strange, given the way that NAFTA works. Like, if you're a Canadian coming into the U.S., so going in the opposite direction, the exact opposite is true. So if you say you're coming in on a vacation, they'll give you trouble. But if you have your offer letter for a job, they will wave you through at the border. Even if you're literally moving to the U.S. for years, you can come in with an offer letter and you get through immigration in 15 minutes. It's so strange.
That was a lesson learned. I'm just glad I got to see the Super Bowl on the plane before I landed there, because any hope that I had of watching the remainder of the Super Bowl would have been dashed by my retention in the holding cell.
Speaking of which, I hear that the Pittsburgh Steelers beat Germany in the World Cup this year. That's what I heard.
By 7-0, right? It was just
7-0.
one touchdown.
Yeah, I mean it was a one touchdown game, so it was pretty close. That's what I understand.
Yeah, and amazingly, they managed to get an extra point without having a touchdown first. That's the 1 point.
Yeah. They were bribing the refs or something.
Because you can't even put that one down to a safety. That's 2 points. So how do you get 1 point?
I don't know, man. That's
maybe it was only half a safety.
Ah, right.
So it was a very unsafe safety.
The ball cut in half, actually.
The referee decided it wasn't at all safe, and so only awarded 1 point instead of the 2.
Yeah. All right. Well, I gotta say that was again, there was 800 people at that Scaladays, and it was really good. Awesome. But it was the first one where I didn't really feel like I got to talk to like a significant number of people that were there because there were so many. I got to talk to tons of people. Did nothing but talk.
Yeah.
But I was astounded. There were a few times where I had to accompany Josh trying to cross a room at Scaladays. It's amazing. Like, literally every 10 feet somebody would stop him. I'm not even exaggerating.
Yeah. And trying to leave.
Stop breaking SBT, Josh. It annoys so many people.
I know. You know, it's kind of. I guess it's sad to me. They announced me in the Scaladays thing as Mr. SBT, but like Mark Hara is the founder and everything. I'm just a Johnny come lately, in terms of like taking a good project and trying to promote it. So that still makes me a slight bit sad, but anyway.
It was interesting to see when you've got like a group of people and you say, okay, let's go, and then each of you tries to go and pick up their bag or coat or whatever and make it to the door, and 45 minutes later you might actually make it, but in the meantime everybody gets sidetracked and it's like, okay, we gotta go, and then somebody else gets sidetracked.
We'd go try to find a beer garden and say, hey, we're going to a beer garden, and tell like 5 people, and then a group of 50 people would follow us.
Yeah, this is like any
which
Scala.
Is awesome. But then it'd take. We went to this beer garden, and I think it was 4 hours before we actually had food.
Oh yeah, and then
they
shut down the kitchens before some people got their food, didn't they, or something?
Yeah, that was pretty bad. And then James Roper really wanted dessert, so we were trying to find a place to get dessert, and there were 50 people following us, and we're like, well, we want dessert. They're like, well, we're going to go to this beer garden here. We're like, well, we're going to go look for dessert. We had to like bail on a few people. That was the only way we managed to get a table to get food, because it was that many people. It was amazing. Anyway, cool. So I think we had 2 other items to talk about real quick.
Yeah, actually, a bit of promotion. Actually, I'm going to do 2. I'm going to usurp this segment and do 2 announcements. The first is Scala by the Bay, which I am somewhat involved with the organisation of. This is a new conference that Alexei of the SF Scala group is setting up, and it's going to be really good. It's 2 days, single track, I think, of talks. Some really good talks there. They are still looking for sponsors. If you are Bay Area Scala related and want to help out a good cause and get your name out there, I can say this: Escalate sponsored. So we are leading by example, people. So get out there and sponsor it. It's a good cause.
I think.
I'm sorry. TypeSafe did too. Yep. Yeah. TypeSafe for sponsors. Yep. But I think they could still use a few more to, make it good. This is the first one. Hopefully there will be more if it's successful. So it's 2 days, lots of talks, and then there's training around it. And this is the little bit of self-serving. We're doing a couple of training courses, Escalate, and so is Alexei's Scala by the Bay company. So just go and check out the site. We'll have the link in the show notes, and you can get that. And then the other one, I need to look up the dates. But we haven't really mentioned the Scalasummit yet, have we, Josh?
No, we haven't.
We should mention that because it's sort of.
It's September something.
15th to the 19th.
Yeah, but I think
I'm in Japan, basically.
Yeah, I think it's September when I'm at Strange Loop, which unfortunately is probably going to apply to quite a few people.
I have
Yeah.
heard, I have heard that it does clash with Strange Loop, although I think some people have said they're going to come for a couple of days and then go to Strange Loop. And if you decide to do that, I'm not actually directly involved with the organization of this one, but knowing the people who are, I bet you if you said, I can only come for a couple of days, how about a discount? I'm pretty sure you're going to get that discount if you phrase it like that. So
I gotta say, the Scala Summit is a great. It's I don't know how to say this so that your manager will approve it, but it's a great refresher. Like basically, imagine going to a beautiful area in the Rockies. You go out and do hiking and stuff. If you're me, you drink lots and lots of water and walk slowly and breathe deeply. It's just gorgeous, and then you get that energy moving, the blood flowing in your head. Then you have really great discussions about things. It's a really good conference. I'm sure Scala by the Bay will be awesome. It looks pretty good. The keynotes are Matei, I don't even know how to say his last name, Spark, and Marius Eriksson, who's always a good speaker. So that should be really good. There's also a conference going on in Japan around those times. Around that time, around Strange Loop and Scalasummit, but that's only of interest to Japanese listeners.
Maybe more.
And
maybe,
Josh,
I hope more.
You're speaking at Lambda Jam in a couple weeks in Chicago.
I'm speaking at Lambda Jam in Chicago. There's still room to go. That'll be fun because it's like Runar, myself, I think Tony Morris, and Brian McKenna.
Rich Hickey.
Yeah. There's gonna be a lot of us. Yeah.
That's a good cast.
I get to have the least functional talk of everyone, so it'll be good times. It's gonna be an epic troll on everyone. We'll see how it goes.
I think it'll be good. I think you'll have fun. And Runar's Photoshop image is still my favorite from the from the Scala 10th talk. The REPL Rebel was just outstanding. We need to include a link to that one in the show notes, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think all the images are on Facebook or something. We'll have to download them.
You're making work for me.
Oh man,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So you don't have to do it, man. We'll just tell people to go and Google it.
We have about 10 minutes until we need to to wrap up. But there was the other thing that's of interest is the Scala 212 roadmap got posted. Got a lot of attention, and I think the key that you'll see in the roadmap is it's less aggressive. Again, things are becoming more stable, but there's an interesting.
Oh, that's a big one. The move to Java 8 as a target.
that eats up a lot of aggressiveness budget all at once.
No, that's I guess what I'm saying. 2.11 and 2.12 kind of evolve at the same time, but one is pre-Java 8, one is Java 8. So it's less aggressive in that it's going to take a while before 2.12 is fully adopted, kind of a thing. There's going to be this weird bifurcation.
Isn't it exciting, though, that we're going to get, in one fell swoop, we're going to get, to take advantage of method handles and to get compatibility with Java 8 lambdas. Those are huge. That's two huge things right there. That can't be underestimated. I'm excited.
I'm actually super, super, super pumped about that. The only thing that's sad is being a tooling guy, we are always 5 releases behind head. And we have to work with all 5. So it's, don't work on tools, basically, if you want cool stuff. That's what I've learned.
Am I allowed to talk about Java for 1 minute?
Yeah.
Actually, about Java. Okay, so one of the talks I did, not at Scaladays, but just before that at Devox UK, was I did a talk on monads using Java 8 as the implementation language and the project Lambda. And it went over really well. It was it was not a mystical talk. This was here's a functor, it has a map, here's a monad, it has a flat map kind of thing. and just showed them code examples. And one of the things that I really liked about it was they've done a good job with Project Lambda in Java 8. It's the first time I've used Java in 4 or 5 years in any serious way, and they've done a really nice job with it. I like the implementation with single abstract methods. The notation is a little bit odd. The only downside was, after doing that, I started putting semicolons in my Scala code again for a while. So it had that, all of a sudden I've got this muscle memory back of semicolons. But no, I think they've done a really nice job. So I wanted to kind of send that out as, kudos to Mike Reinhold and Brian Getz and Joe, all those guys for doing such a great job on it.
I've noticed...
sorry. Oh, I was going to say, Project Lambda, I think, is the most elegant way you could add lambdas to the Java language.
Agreed.
I don't think you could do it better without fundamentally changing Java.
Absolutely agreed. That's where it nailed it. It added an important feature whilst keeping the feel of Java and minimizing the number of changes, and I think they absolutely nailed that set of requirements.
Yeah.
I think the design of the collections APIs is really interesting, and it's already become a major part of any discussion about the future of the Scala collections API. There's a really good thread on this going on right now. I forget which list, if it's Scala debate or Scala internals about stream fusion for collections. Should chained collections operations be strict by default or not? It's really interesting to think about. I think that the Java 8 people did a great job of doing this other choice than Scala did, and doing it well. It give us all a lot to think about.
Well, what's interesting there to me, Paul Phillips, myself, and Alexander Prokopek have all done experimentation into non-strict views, memoizing the ops that have been performed and waiting to optimize and run everything all at once at the end, kind of a thing. Because the memoization in views is really what kills them in terms of actually being useful. You would think that memoizing intermediate results is a good idea, but it's actually terrible, in my opinion.
Right. I think that's actually a really important point to make. Is that the argument for making things lazy it's not necessarily the performance argument. Like, it's not necessarily this huge performance win. I think the better argument to make is just that it's a simpler design.
Yeah,
it's like sort of cognitive overhead and amount of design that goes into it and so forth.
Yeah, it's a much better thing to maintain. So I mean that's been something Scala has wanted to do for a while, but we're always had our hands tied from source and binary compatibility, and I mean since we wanted to do it. So it's interesting with Java streams in that I think that's going to finally put the kick in the pants to actually do something about views seriously, to have competitive streams, and I think you'll see that as a separate piece. So as opposed to trying to take what we have, which is designed to work in a fundamental way that's different than how we want it to be, instead of trying to make those two work together, I think there'll be just a new piece. But I don't know where that's going. I just know that we've had that internal discussion for the past 4 years, I think. Maybe only 3. So it's been that's been a long time coming, and I'm glad Java 8 is kicking Scala to make it happen.
Yeah, the overwhelming impression I got from working on this was I got to use lambdas a little bit with the Java collections as they are, and it's been lumped on, and it feels okay, but it feels it's awkward. And when you go back to inherently mutable collections, it just feels wrong now after working with immutable collections for so long. But then you get to the Streams API and you're like, damn, they've done a good job on this stuff. The Streams API kicks butt. So yeah, I think there's we can. I suspect that one of the things I do. God, I'm drifting off again into some never land of anecdotes. But one of the projects that I always include on Scala pretty much as soon as I start writing a Scala project is I bring Guava in because I want Cache Builder from Guava, and there's no really good there's no alternative.
Cache Builder. What is Cache Builder?
Cache Builder is like, concurrent hash map. It's like concurrent hash map on steroids. It's like every key and value can be a hard, weak, or soft reference. It has semantics.
Like separately, entry by entry?
No, just you can choose whether the keys are soft or weak.
Oh, okay.
The values are soft and weak or weak. It has semantics for aging entries and deleting entries when you get above a certain size. It's basically an in-memory cache solution that's really, really good, and it's all based around the same idea as concurrent hash maps. So not synchronized as much as just good thread-safe design. And so it's one of the things I always bring in, and I can see using when we get 2.12, I can see using the Streams API in from Java for some of these kind of operations as well now. It's that good. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Right, and so you guys should check out the Scala 2.12 roadmap because the Java 8 thing is big. I think the other interesting thing is all the 2.12 features will be shared between 2.11 and 2.12. Just the I forget how the Java 8 bytecode op is supposed to hit. And then there's going to be some optimizer stuff that hits too, which I'm kind of excited for.
Oh.
This is Miguel's new backend finally getting merged.
Yeah, I think Lucas Ritz, he's from EPFL. He's now with TypeSafe. He's the one who did the named and default parameters. He's been working on pulling that sucker in, which is going to be good because what the backend essentially does is rip out a whole intermediate layer in the compiler. So it's not like an amazing speed up, but that just getting rid of that layer and working at the bytecode level for some optimizations versus at the tree level for others, I think will give us a little bit more. It'll be a little bit better overall, my opinion. So I'm excited to see that work happen, get through, be completed.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's it for a show.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one, I think. Any last closing notes about Scaladays or anything else?
I just want to say that everyone I met was awesome, and I wish I had more time to talk to you while you were there. But yeah.
Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're part of a team.
That was my favorite song too.
Yeah. I'm feeling a little bad that there were a lot of really good talks that just didn't even get mentioned. Like
I know.
Runar's talk on free.
Oh, yeah. Runar's talk on free. Yeah.
Dennis Shablin's talk on quasi-quotes was great.
And the new macro stuff looks amazing. Quasi-quotes look good.
Runar's stuff wasn't actually on free. It was on reasonably priced monads. I was there as part of that conversation that gave birth to the name of reasonably priced monads. I told him he shouldn't be giving them away for free if he ever wanted to make any money. So he should price them reasonably instead.
Yeah, there was a talk on SBT that I didn't give that was pretty good about like the core features that you get into. Trying to remember other good talks that people.
I'd like to describe Dennis's talk a little. Actually,
go ahead.
It's about quasi-quotes, and I think that all of the when people think about quasi-quotes, they're thinking about them only as an implementation technique for authors of macros in Scala. So that's the main way that they've entered people's consciousness. But what Dennis did is in his talk is instead of using quasi-quotes to embed Scala in itself, which is what you do when you use them to write macros, he used them to embed another language. the concatenative language Joy, which is a far simpler language than Scala. So it really, by embedding this much simpler language, I thought it really showed off in a much simpler and more isolated context, like what quasi-quotes were all about, and what a cool way it was of embedding one language in another, that it doesn't have to be Scala within itself. So I'd recommend that talk to anyone interested in compiler stuff. That was my path through Scaladays as I was going to compiler talks.
So did anyone see Ender Veger's talk? I can't say his last name correctly, but it's on concurrency, like managing concurrency. It was he's one of the core guys that worked on Akka Streams, and he has like a PhD doing concurrency research. It was actually
see that.
Yeah, it was really interesting listening to that. So anyway.
Cool. Well, they're all up. I think all the videos are up now, right? So we can go.
No, I think there's still 3 that are not up. So if there's a video missing, it's because they're still uploading it. But almost all of them are up. Yeah, on parlays or parleys or parleys.
It's parlays. It's the pirate thing. Yar, I invoke the right of parlay. Yar.
Yeah. It's true. It's our website, actually.
Okay, we almost made it to the end of an episode with 0 pirate humor.
Arr, avast ye,
Arr.
You'll never escape old Davy Jones.
We'll force ye to walk the plank, Seth.
Or we would, but then who would write the show notes?
Oh, right. Oh, man.
Stay of execution.
Thanks for watching, guys, and yeah, we're gonna have our next show. I'm gonna have to look up the date because I don't remember, but it's gonna be with Victor Klang, and it's gonna be called 5 Years of Akka. So we're gonna ask Victor all sorts of embarrassing questions about Akka and what it's like being a legend, and I guess any sort of story behind Akka, where it came from, why it's not as good as the Scala Actors Library, and that sort of thing.
Yar.
Yar. We'll make him walk the plank.
Yeah. So Daniel, wear your Legend of Clang gear.
I wouldn't wear anything else.
And
no, please wear something else as well. I'm not sure we're ready for that. We don't want you just wearing a Legend of Clang t-shirt.
Shoulders up.
Yeah, no, that's not good. That's not a good image.
Yeah, and I think we'll ask Victor to wear his Spiewak Effect t-shirt.
Oh, and he has those.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, we need a Scalawags t-shirt, guys.
Yeah. See, that's why people don't know who we are.
Because we don't have
t-shirts.
t-shirts.
The only reason. It's the only reason because we don't have a t-shirt yet.
I bet if we had t-shirts, people who don't even know what Scala is would buy them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Just saying.
And then,
okay,
then you could walk into the restaurant and point at the t-shirt. Do you know who I am?
Do you know who made that t-shirt?
I know who you are. You're somebody who doesn't know how to spell Scalawags.
That's true. All right, guys. Have a good night.
See you guys.